So thanks for the presentation. I would ask, oh sorry, I am Orsolya Kálmán from the University of Budapest, and from the Lisbon team I would like to ask about so the main goal and with this research study that you've conducted here, because it's interesting that your students are involved in it, or you discuss it with them, or so what will be the main effect of this research study here in Lisbon? I'm really interested in that.
Is there anyone else? Yes?
I'm Paulo from Lisbon School of Education and a PhD in Institute of Education. I like to ask to Professor Schatz, you made a claim, I think it's a real bold claim, that we cannot see learning, but that's a lot of literature in science education, mainly that on conceptual change, on conceptual development, that integrate psychology, historians, philosophy, historians, even philosophy and science education that draws on a research that we can in fact see how pupils, how students come to learn, how they construct his learning. In fact, this is a huge field with very different and contested aspects, but we can see learning happen. Is this?
Hello, I come from Universidade Nova de Lisboa. I'm a medical educator. And I would like to know, on the Portuguese in the Universidade de Lisboa study, about the higher education studies, about the teachers in higher education, because it's my goal. So could you give us more details, please, Luís?
Yes, thanks.
Hello, I'm Claudia Fortunato from Potsdam, Germany. I'm a student teacher, and I would like to ask Mr. Schatz to explain the most important results of the study, because due to the lack of time, you couldn't come to that point, I think, but you already introduced the questions the research asked, and now it would be very interesting to hear the results.
So, the last question. Yes.
I'm Kara Smith, University of Bergen. I have two questions. The first question is to the Portuguese speakers, both of them, and that is, what kind of education do your PhD and master students get in methodology? Specifically when you saw the large amount of case studies and interviews, and we talked about people being practitioner researchers, what education do they get in methodology? The other question is to Michael, and that question is, what you're talking about is in a way the importance of what I call the learning dialogue. Not the teaching dialogue, the learning dialogue. And in what way do you think we can encourage and develop in teacher education the ability to engage in learning dialogues with the pupils? And learning dialogues, it would be learning for both the pupils as well as for the teacher.
Is there any other question? No? Okay, thanks.
We'll address the first question and perhaps the next before the last question of the methodology and leave to Luís the others, okay? What is the effect of this research was the first question. In mathematics education and in science education, there has been a huge influence of this research on teaching in Portugal. Especially because there is a very close connection between teacher education groups and specifically groups involved in research and the Association of Teachers of Mathematics and mathematics teachers in schools. So not sort of a direct influence because of papers that have been written or in service courses that have been made, but because of many other kinds of informal connections and going to meetings, annual meetings, and discussing and doing things in collaboration. So that's something that we did not speak very much up to now, but it's also part of creating this connection. And just to give you an idea, there was a policy of supporting really mathematics and science education in the last, from 2005 to 2011. And that enabled a creation of something that is not as the Norwegian project, but in a scale of Portugal was something that has never been done before, an extended in-service teacher education program in maths and science. And the results on Teams 2012 was that the Portuguese pupils had a growth of 90 points from 450 something to 532. So it is really something that there's no parallel in the Teams. Next comes England with an increase in 50 points, and Austria, I think, came back in Teams, decreased from 95 to 2012. And these, I connect very much this to the policies that were made. So there was also some impulse from the government that was able to get the expertise that is based on knowledge coming from this research and connect it in a stronger way to teachers. And so there were results that were visible in these kind of tests. And of course, there were results that were visible in other ways. We could go into the classroom and see the students working in a different way, in different kinds of mathematical tasks, doing argumentation in the classroom, things that they were not used to do before, etc. So if we can really manage to have teachers, researchers and teacher educators and the government and the people that has the resources working together, we definitely are in much better place. So this is not the case today. As you know, we have in Portugal a back to basics movement that is very happy in destroying the progresses that have been made in education in the name of the real quality of education, which is just now do computations by heart without understanding very well what they are doing, but getting hopefully marks in the test as is expected. So it's something absolutely crazy, but this is the official theory of the government on educational policy these days. Regarding the research methodology, this is a problem that we struggle and try to get solutions. At this point, our solution for this is like this. And at the master's degree level, master's degree students have a first course, one semester, which is an overall perspective about research methodology with the different elements from posing the research questions to writing the research report, including a little bit of an idea what is quantitative and qualitative research and data collection and data analysis. Then there is a second course in the second semester, which is modular. And so the students have 12 models, 16 models, where they have to pick 2. And one is focused on data collection and the other one is focused on data analysis. So they may have case study which is more data collection interviews or questionnaires or observation, and others that are more focused on the data analysis, like content analysis or statistical analysis or whatever. So there's now social network analysis, for example, very specific. Then the third stage is in the PhD level, in which it's much done by reading and criticizing research articles, seeing research articles, what was the research that was used there, the research design, criticizing that, and discussing the PhD students' proposals. There's several cycles of discussion and the research methodology, but so it's not a formal thing in which we cover a lot of material, but it's discussing issues that arise in terms of what the students are doing, or what the research papers. We invite the students to choose research papers that they want to discuss because they find interesting. So that's the, okay.
Okay, I have one question to answer then. Patricia, I don't know by heart all the studies in higher education. I think there are about 20. But now we have the database set, so if you want, we can look at them in more detail and see what they've been doing with those 20-something studies. However, from my recollection, what I see as emerging themes from the studies in higher education are concerned with the competencies of higher education professors, competencies to teach, teaching experiments in higher education, and needs assessment. Those were the three needs assessment of what kinds of professional development do they feel that they need for their practice. And those are the three main themes right now I think are the most emerging one from the higher education subset. But we can look into it. I'll be glad to do it now that we have the database set with you. You're welcome. Michael.
Okay. Thank you for the challenging questions. I start with Lisbon and go to the other countries first. My claim is nobody in here has ever seen learning. I haven't. I have only seen results of learning, and this is how psychologists would say a behavior changes from state A to state B. Neuroscientists, as I said, would use color in your brain and say something is happening if you do this or that. But is that learning? I mean, these are processes, but learning as such is not possible to be visible. For example, when you think of something very simple, to learn to ride a bike. When I did that with my daughters, I could never predict when they could actually do it. I could help them, put 2 extra wheels on, I could sort of push them a little bit, hold them. It's impossible. And my daughter would know when she would not know when she would learn. And suddenly she could do that. So I didn't see learning, I only saw she could do it. And now she's a professional in doing that, as we all are, driving cars, etc. Yeah? It would be very easy if you knew how to do it. Yeah? And it's the phenomenon, if we talk about experiences, like when you wake up. Only when you are woken up, you can say, I woke up. But the moment of waking up, you can't experience, because it's always ex post facto. So that makes it so difficult in our profession. And as Kari said, you know, for a teacher who can't predict when a student learns, he can do as much as possible, scaffolding, didactic tricks, what we learn, but it's unpredictable when, take for example, the third person S, which doesn't exist in the German language. There's no research when anybody learns the third person S in English. I have students at university who still can't use the third person S in a proper way. If we had knowledge when they would learn it, would be very good. And how more difficult is it? And I had a very nice vignette, 2 students struggling with the present perfect tense, which doesn't exist in German. How do you learn a tense in a language which you are not familiar with? The teachers tell them, use since or for as the triggers for when you have to use the present perfect. but you don't learn what the tense form is. Yeah? If you talk to somebody who uses it, it's a feeling. You notice, I've been doing it. Yeah? It's been happening. Yeah? And this is the problem and the problematic we have. Yeah? I mean, I agree, there's lots of, especially in this university, in mathematics education, and I think it's very valuable to find out, but still you can't predict what a teacher can do because people are different, fortunately. Every human being in the world is different from somebody else. Second question goes to Germany, to Potsdam. Results. First, in our book, we have collected 75 of those vignettes, and when you look at them, you get a very interesting picture of perspective from learners in Austria. Yeah? Everybody could say these are only 75. Yeah? If we had 150 more or 1,000, you would always read something like that. I have a doctoral student in the States, and I thought that would be very different because teaching is done differently in the United States than in Austria. And we were quite surprised. We get similar vignettes. Because it's the other side of the coin. We always think, and this leads over to Kari then, our students always think learning is the result of teaching. And we have a hell of a lot of to do to tell them that that is not a direct result. Yeah? There's something else to it. Kari has shown it, you know, with these little dots in there. Coming back to the Potsdam student, each of the doctoral students has to find one phenomenon when they write their dissertation. And one who is just finished and has his defense at the beginning of October was looking at the phenomenon of interruption in a classroom. In German literature, you hardly find anything on teachers interrupting students when they learn. You find a lot of students interrupting teachers in their teaching. Yeah? And we found lots of instances where students were trying to learn, or at least to have an experience where they were struggling with what they were supposed to learn, and the teacher was interrupting them. Yeah? Look, where would you find learning in this vignette? So we are trying to bring research into the field from a phenomenological perspective, from the student's view. As I said, Hattie said, look through the student eyes. That's not possible. That's why we can only try and get as much and as close as possible to the experience. But what we do different from other kinds of researchers, empirical research would go as far away as possible from the immediate situation to get an abstraction of it, yeah? Which is fair enough if you have this kind of theory in mind, PISA data, etc. Yeah? We try to be as close as possible because we want to get as close as possible to those experiences and pass them on for different purposes. Third question to Norway, the learning dialogue. The dialogue, of course, is a very important thing, but dialogical notions usually don't include the corporality we notice. Yeah? So we notice a lot of bodily experience, corporal experiences in there. And what we have started now, because of this experience in our pre-service classes of our teacher education students in the first year, we sent them into the classroom to do exactly what we've been doing as researchers, just to find out more of that part of the coin. Yeah? And it's very difficult when you look which dialogue is in there. Yeah? And we are trying to write now, how would a theory of didactics look like from beyond the reach of teaching? Yeah? And very many points in your presentation reminded me of the findings. We are getting close there. For example, what does responsibility mean for a teacher? It's the ability to respond. How do you respond to the uniqueness of an individual sitting in front of you? Or how does the teacher respond to this boy who was reading the Mickey Mouse? Yeah? She asked him to repeat what she was saying because she thought he wouldn't really pay attention, and he was multitasking, so to speak, and just always getting with the other ear what was going on in the classroom, which is actually a high level of attention if you think of that. Yeah? So I take your idea as a kind of thought to think about what it means for dialogue. I would say as closest as we come was what Martin Buber argues in dialogic form, that the I is always in the you and you is in the I. And how can you as a teacher, teaching is and learning, they are so closely interrelated that you can't put them apart. I use the word Lernsites because Biester says we get nowadays into the learnification. We just talk about learning and forget about the teacher. We want to strengthen the teacher by making him or her sensitive to responsive to what he or she actually causes in his or her actions. Yeah? But sorry, this is a very challenging question.
Can I follow up on that?
Yes.
Because I think with to a large extent we agree with each other. Because when I'm talking about the learning dialogue, it is not a script. It is exactly what I would also call responsive teaching.
Okay.
And the learner is not necessarily the pupil.
Yeah.
That is extremely important for me to stress.
Yeah.
Because in order, as I feel it, in order to conduct or to have a true learning dialogue, the teacher is the learner because the teacher has to learn about
Right.
and listen,
Agreed.
not only hear, but listen to the students in order to engage in the responsiveness which has to be there. So Buber and Rometvedt, if you know his theory, is exactly the same.
Or I would say what Klaus Otto Scharmer calls presencing, sensing the presence, the emerging future in a process between a teacher and a learner. How do you feel this sense, how do you feel the emerging future, yeah, which is a struggle? I think we get very close to that. Me perhaps more from the student's perspective and you perhaps more from the, I don't know, but...
I get it very much from the feedback
Okay, yeah.
perspective, because
Okay.
that is what I think
Yeah.
feedback is
Yeah,
all about.
yeah. What Bachtin writes about it is very valuable in our research as well. Yeah. Well, thanks for
So,
those elaborations.
Thank you very much to the professors who gave the speeches. Thank you very much to the audience. And I'm pushing them, and I was pushed by the others. So it's time to finish this part of the debate.
and please don't forget to come back at 2:30. Thank you very much, and have a nice lunch. Bye.